Good morning there, Year 3, and how are you today? So welcome to your guided reading lesson today. What I want to do before we begin is I want you to have a go at some of these questions here. You're going to need to use the text from yesterday to help you, okay? So you need to go back in the video and you'll need to watch the video, listen to the story again, maybe jot some notes down, and I want you to have a go at answering these questions. So in chapter 2, we saw that Lila wrote to her father a very angry letter saying that she would be leaving for Mount Merapi. Now I want you to imagine that you're Lila's father, Lachlan, and I want you to write a letter back to Lila explaining the reasons why she should return. So you'll need to go back to that page where she wrote the letter, have a look at what she wrote, and try and imagine that you are Lila. You are Lachlan, you are Lila's dad, and what would you write back to her? Would you be angry? Would you be concerned? Would you be happy? Would you be joyful? How would you be feeling? What would you be thinking? What questions would you ask yourself? What would you be thinking about Lila's safety? So I want you to think carefully about the reasons why Lila should come back, and I want you to include those in your letter. So pause the video and I want you to have a go at that now for me. Welcome back. Okay, let's get on with today's lesson. So today we're still going to be working on inferring. So inferring what is stated and implied. Now, to be successful with this, we're going to need to identify the key words in the question, think carefully about how a character feels from their actions and their behaviours, and think about the hidden meaning as well, okay? Think about what somebody is not actually saying, but what are they trying to imply with what their words that they have written. And also, can you say whether something is stated or implied? So do you remember, if it's stated, it's there clear in the text. If it's implied, it means that you need to carefully think, what is the writer trying to tell me? What do I need to work out? Okay, excellent. So let's crack on then. So let me move my video up into the corner here. Okay, do you remember our inferencing with Iggy? Here he is again. Okay, so remember, it is a complex reading skill. It is a really tricky skill to learn and to use regularly. So what I'd like you to do really, Year 3, while you're reading your books at home, start to use this skill. When you're watching films as well, start to use this skill. So I want you to start thinking about, what are they trying to tell me without actually telling me, okay? So it requires us to be a book detective. It allows us to come to conclusions using evidence from the text. Now, do you remember we had to lay the pieces of evidence together to create that picture for us? Sometimes, though, it can be really tricky because authors tend to not be explicit. That means they're not writing things really clearly, and they suggest things through their word choices. Okay, so to infer successfully, there are a number of things that you should do. So look for clues. That's number 1. Think about the connotations of the words used in the text. Why are they using those particular words? What's the reason for that? And then match something in your text to your own understanding, experience, or knowledge. So if they use a certain phrase, have you ever experienced that? How did you feel? What were your thoughts? Can you link it together? Okay, these are really good skills to have, children, when we are reading. So here, for example, the men walked down the street to the mine with their heads bent close to their chests. In groups of 5 or 6, they scurried on. It was impossible to recognise the individuals from the small gaps between their caps pulled down over their eyes and the tightly bound scarves tied tightly over the bottom half of their faces. So in this example, we need to be detectives and use the evidence to explain how the men are feeling. So the first piece of evidence is the heads were bent close to their chest. So that could be telling us that they might be tired, or it could be telling us that they might not want people to see their faces. We're not sure yet, because that's our first piece of evidence. The second piece of evidence that we have is that they scurried on. They scurried. Well, scurried means that they're moving really quickly. So why are they in a rush? What's that reason? So now we're starting to build a picture. They have their heads down. Maybe they don't want people to see their faces as they're moving quite quickly as well. They're scurrying along. And the last piece of evidence that we have to build that picture is that their caps were pulled down over their eyes and their scarves were bound, that means tied tightly around their bottom half of their faces. So this part of their face is covered and this part of their face is covered. Oh, okay. So now we're starting to build that picture. It must be cold, could be winter time, and they're hurrying along because they are covering up their heads as much as they possibly can because they are cold. And they're bent down because they don't want their faces to have the full force of the winter wind, do they? Think about when you are really cold, and especially when we go out into the playground, we put our hats on, don't we? And we pull them right down over our ears, and we have our scarves right round our neck to keep us nice and warm. And that's what these men are doing. And sometimes we might put our head down when that wind blows. Do you see there how we built a picture? We picked out evidence from the text and we built up a picture, and we used our inference skills to make a plausible reasoning why what was happening. Okay, let's move on. So let's have a look from yesterday. Do you remember we had to go at this yesterday? And we thought about the little girl. She was hoping to find a puppy. And then we thought about why she was getting that puppy, because it was something she really, really wanted. We knew that she was really excited because she hesitated before she opened the box, and then she let out a high-pitched squeal. And Mum and Dad were waiting eagerly because they were really excited about sharing the gift with their daughter. So they were really excited, waiting to see, is she going to like it? I'm not sure. Let's hope she does. And then we thought, well, the story could be about a little girl and her puppy, or a little girl and her life with the puppy, or just that could be the end of the story, and it could be that the puppy was the final present. Okay, so now it's your turn to have a go at this. You can see on your worksheet you have this piece of text, and what I'd like you to do is have a go at reading it and then answering those questions below. Pause the video here, and I want you to have a go at reading this text and then answering the questions. Okay, then welcome back now. So I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to answer the questions together, and you can self-mark them if you wish. Rain lashed against the windows as Jane stamped up and down the room, stopping only to check the time on the mantel clock every 5 minutes. Her book, bought with such enthusiasm the day before, was flung carelessly into the corner beside the abandoned picnic basket. Jane stamped her feet and began to repeat her earlier tedious complaints against nature. Emily merely smiled to herself and carried on reading the newspaper without as much as a nod to the head. Now, what had Jane got planned that day? Should we find some evidence in the text? Well, let's have a look. She kept stamping up and down, and she kept stopping and looking at the clock. Is that going to tell us what she's got planned? No. Let's look at the next sentence. Her book, bought with such enthusiasm the day before, was flung carelessly into the corner beside the abandoned picnic basket. There's some evidence. An abandoned picnic basket. What do you think she might be doing? We know it's raining. We know we have an abandoned picnic basket. Let's put those two clues together, and what do we come up with? That's right. She was meant to be going on a picnic, but she couldn't because it was raining. And then if we have a look again back at the text, and this answers our next question. How would you describe Jane's mood? Well, I'm thinking if it's raining, they've abandoned the picnic basket, and she's stamping up and down, and she threw her book across the room. I don't think she's going to be in a very happy mood. Do you? No, I think she's feeling very cross and grumpy, very fed up, because it's raining and she can't go on her picnic today. There was another piece of evidence in the text to support that too, and that was where Jane stamped her feet and began to repeat her earlier tedious complaints against nature. There, she's complaining about the rain. There's nothing we can do about the rain, is there? If it's going to rain, it's going to rain. So her tedious complaints were just silly complaints that she kept moaning about, but nothing could be done about it. Now, what phrase does the author use to tell you that Emily disapproves of Jane's behaviour? So, in the last sentence, it says, Emily merely smiled to herself and carried on reading the newspaper without as much of a nod of the head. So Emily isn't engaging with Jane. She isn't telling her off, but she isn't speaking to her either. She's just looking and reading her newspaper, and she's smiling to herself. I wonder what she could be thinking. I wonder if she's thinking, that Jane is so silly. There's nothing we can do about the rain. I wonder if she's thinking, well, we can't go today. Maybe we can go tomorrow. Never mind. So just using that sentence there, we have pulled out some evidence to give us an idea of what Emily was thinking. Now, I don't think, though, because she doesn't engage with her, she definitely disapproves with Jane's behaviour. How did you get on with that? Did you get similar answers to what we just talked about? If so, that's brilliant. If you're still finding this hard, then you can still go back and watch the videos from the last couple of days, because that will really, really help you. Okay, let's move on. So remember, Infants and Iggy might ask, what makes you think? Give evidence to support your answer. What impressions are giving about why? Why did the character behave like this? How does the character feel in the situation? How do you know? Why is something important? Explain your answer. And which character would you most like to meet? Explain why. Okay, so now then, let me just move my picture. Let me pop it there. I love this picture here. This is a picture of Rambashi. Can you see him there? And there's Lila. And there is, they weren't fishermen, were they? They were pirates, that's right. So at the end of chapter 2, we saw Lila meet a group of pirates who tricked her into thinking they were fishermen on a river. So I've got some questions which I'd like you to pause the video and I want you to have a go at answering these. So these are your thoughts and your opinions. How do you think Lila feels knowing the identity of the men? What do you think the men will do when they find that Lila doesn't have any money? And how might Lila get out of this situation? I'd like you to pause the video now and have a go at answering those questions. Welcome back. Shall we move on? Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to read to you again now. Now, I spoke to Lily and I spoke to Ruben today, and they both said they really enjoyed me reading the story to you. So I hope that you do. But soon I'm going to read a little bit and then you're going to read a little bit at home. Okay. So, but for today, I am going to read the story to you.